simple question: what constitutes a good research? And you have to simply put a tick mark on the aspects which have been enlisted there. You just go to okay, so we have already one response here. I'll request all the members to submit their opinion. Well, friends, thank you very much for the responses you have given. I think 30 people have responded to this. Maybe we can wait. We don't have time to wait for others now. Let me just share the presentation with you, which is titled as Selecting and Defining a Research Problem. And my question to you were, what is it that constitutes a good research? And if you have seen the variables which were enlisted there, these have been taken from the RANDS Corporation, which have enlisted the criteria for good research. And here you will see that when you look at this, the responses which we have got, still there are variations. But any good research is characterized by all these as the characteristics. The very first thing you observe here is well formulated problem. And if you recall the process of research which has been deliberated in the previous session, you will see that the selecting and defining a research problem is the very first step in research. And the more clear the problem is, the more manageable it is, more specific it is, and if it is relevant, then the research is labeled as good research. And any well formulated research problem gives direction for undertaking this study, because the title itself makes it clear whether the methodology would be a descriptive one, whether it will be correlational one, whether it will be true cause and effect relationship, or whether it will be a causal comparative research, that is what we refer to as ex post facto research, because that is determined by the research question which is raised on the basis of the problem experienced. Then comes, once you are clear about the methodology, then comes the collection of data. So whether the problem which has been taken up is allowing for collection of data, and whether the data and the information required to accept or reject a hypothesis that is available or not. And then clarity of assumptions, because when we try to define our research problem, then we also try to formulate theoretical assumptions based upon certain theory which is already in existence in the subject. So clarity of assumptions is also a criteria for good research. Then you can see that whether the study which is being taken up has the understanding of the related previous research studies, because any good research has a component of review of related literature that may begin before we select a problem. And once a problem is selected, then intensive research literature is reviewed for that particular problem statement. So that is again a criteria. Then you can see whether the research leads to logical conclusions and implications. Because once a data collected is analyzed, it leads to the conclusions, and from the conclusions comes the implications for the stakeholders. Then clarity of purpose is also, which is directly linked to the formulation of problem. Appropriate documentation, that is the report writing. Then well stated descriptive objectives of the research. Now the purpose and the objectives, they form part of defining the research problem, and even the assumptions which we lay down, that becomes a part of defining the problem. Then comes the last one. You can see that responses from ये क्या आ गया, रविराज, ओ इन्होंने कुछ और ही लिखा है. Okay, so if you look at this, you find that there are differences with respect to the criteria for good research, but all of this forms part of the criteria for good research. Now if you look at this, is now I'm not going to discuss the criteria, but the beginning point becomes for me that when we look at the problem, the research, selecting and defining a research problem, a good research starts with identification of a research problem and statement of that research problem. And let's not waste time on this, the criteria for research, but you can see in the process itself, you have been given this detailing that the very first step is selecting and defining a research problem. Describing methodology is the second, where you decide about the sample, you decide about the tools which you are going to use, the kind of experimental setup which you will be using in the experimental design, and then the kind of statistical techniques you will use to analyze the data, and then further leads to collection of data. And finally, once the data has been collected, you are going for analyzing the data, keeping in view the objectives and hypotheses for the study. And then the findings are interpreted and conclusions are arrived at and implications for research are given. And that becomes a part of your research report. Now, I'll be focusing on with the very first step, that is, how do we go about selecting and defining the research problem? And what are the different sources of research ideas from where we can derive the idea for research or the problems? And then how do we actually, the process which is involved in selecting and defining a research problem, then factors to be taken into consideration, and how do we evaluate our research problem? Then what do we understand by this term variable? Then how do we state research questions or state the research objectives? And finally, how do we formulate the hypothesis? Now, this is a small, again, a small task for the group to do. So I'll request, just let me paste this into task number 2. What are the characteristics of a good problem? And there are 3 questions which are there, and list 3 to 4 sources of research idea or problem from where you derive the idea for the research or the problem. And then what exactly is problem? Simply put, tick mark. Then please tick mark the characteristics of good research problem. So 3 questions are there, 5 minutes to you. It is a simple one. Friends, you have taken the task. So let me just first have an idea of that before we start why we need to have a research problem and why it should be stated in specific terms, and the purpose of having a very specific research problem is that it should be the one which can guide the scientific method. That means the process of research is guided by the research itself. Now, if you say, for example, you are taking up a study on effect of reinforced concrete on the strength of concrete, say for example. Now, if this particular, now here you are able, from the statement itself you have given, you are able to say what kind of research will be undertaken. It clearly shows it is going to be an experimental research where you are likely to determine the effect of one variable on the other variables. Another, maybe you are likely to have the impact of the number of variables, say, in the factors affecting the engine performance. So if you are just trying to find out, identify the factors affecting the performance of an engine. Now, this particular study, maybe you are able to again shows how you are going to determine by varying the parameters that affect the engine performance. And engine performance, there are various parameters for engine performance itself. Again, it provides a structure how you are going to manipulate one or the other variable and see its effect on other variables. If you are determining the association or relationship between the two variables or more than two variables, say I'm concerned with identifying or determining the relationship between the intelligence, emotional intelligence, and academic achievement of final year students of electronics and communication engineering. Now, this particular study also makes it very clear that we are going to study three variables, that is intelligence, emotional intelligence, and academic achievement, and we are going to have the relationship study. So three variables are to be measured, and then the relationship among those variables is to be studied. And this thus brings in the clarity in undertaking the research. And the very first thing we are saying is that there is research problem. And here you can see that research problem can be any need or difficulty or a challenge which is posed to the individual or to any other organization or a group of people. Say, as a teacher, I'm teaching a particular course, say, I'm teaching research methodology. Now, there are various methods of instruction which can be used to teach a course on research methodology. You can use lecture method, you can use discussion method, you can use project based learning or project work, or you can use problem based learning as a method to teach the research methodology. So a teacher is faced with a problem, that is, which particular instructional strategy will be more effective in comparison to the other, or maybe the lecture method. Or it may be that we are looking at the various theories which exist in the subject matter. And thereby, if there is any kind of contradiction between the findings or explanation given in theory 1 and theory 2, now, when we are looking at the behavioral sciences, the learning is defined as the change in behavior of the learner. But when we look at the constructivist theories of learning, we find that it says that each individual constructs knowledge for himself or herself, right? And here, the emphasis is that knowledge is constructed by an individual based upon his experiences or interaction with the other individuals. Likewise, in science and engineering courses, there are different theories which exist to explain a phenomena. If there is any kind of contradiction between the two theories, that may become the basis for research, or that itself is a research. Now you all are also familiar with that National Education Policy 2020 is there. It has been now forced, and it is said that all institutions need to implement National Education Policy 2020, the recommendations, especially for the higher education institutions. Now, the question arises, this is a problem. Are the institutions ready for implementing the various recommendations of National Education Policy? Or maybe if we are going for introducing flexibility in curriculum offerings, are the institutions having adequate resources to provide adequate flexibility to the students to choose courses of study as per their interest and aptitude? Is there kind of, this may be a problem for us, or the problem is, if we are going to implement, now there was national mission on technology enabled learning or education. And that mission has been implemented by various institutions in variety of forms. But the problem is, are we able to reap the benefits of integrating ICT or technology in our teaching learning, or what kind of impact had been there on the student learning? That may be a problem with which we are encountered. So there can be a problem which is theoretical, which emerges from the theory, or there may be a practical situation. As I said, the teacher has to decide about the instructional strategies. Are we ready for implementation of NEP? And what has been the impact of the technology enabled learning on the student learning? Likewise, as a civil engineer, you may be confronted with the question that we are going to use the reinforcement. So, are we going for steel reinforced concrete? Are we going to go for fly ash reinforced concrete or glass reinforced concrete, depending upon in which situation? So you are likely to be posed with this question: which kind of reinforcement will be more effective in construction of a bridge, if you're involved in construction of a bridge? Or you might be concerned with the question that you are looking at your practical or maybe your day-to-day experiences, and you come across there are historical monuments which have been there for 100 200 years. Now, if these monuments have been there and you have the buildings now which have been constructed in the near past, maybe 50 years or 20 years, you find total difference in quality. Those historical monuments are still stable, and there is more durability in the kind of structures. And the structures which are available now, there are cracks, there are seepage problems, there are color problems, and so on. Or breaking of or collapsing of structures have been there. We have witnessed so many cases of bridge collapsing. Now, the question in the mind of researcher may be, what is it that differentiate a historical monument from today's building construction technology? Maybe can be number of reasons. Maybe the design itself is a problem. Maybe there is a problem with the material. Maybe there is a problem with the technology which has been used in construction of those kinds of monuments and today's buildings. Or maybe there is also design problem. Maybe there's layout, orientation, etc., etc. There can be number of problems which can be reasons for this kind of difference observed in monuments and the to this day kind of building construction which is taking place. So you can look at the definition that it can come from the idea जो problem है, that is a gap that may exist in the knowledge component. That is, there are contradictions in the theories. This may be a gap or an issue or a challenge that is faced by the practitioner or by an individual or by a group of individuals or by an organization, which is posing a problem or creating a hindrance in the process. That may be, or the person is involved in making a decisions, and there are more than two alternatives which are available, as I've given you examples of the concrete reinforcement or maybe the instructional strategy, or there can be materials which can be differently used for different types of objects or phenomena. So it can be any kind of issue, any kind of problem. Or you can also think in terms of a problem can be you when we say problem, it's what is the gap between what should and what is. Now, when I say it's a gap between what should and what is, that means what is a idealistic condition that we expect and what is the real condition. Now, if you why we take up optimization optimization studies. Even that is the reason that we would like to have the maximum output from the input we are providing, or the association between the variables. So you would like to maximize the relationship so that you get the best outcome from that. So when we say research problem, it is very beautifully Rinkel and Jorgensen, they have concluded that is this gap which exists in the knowledge, or something which is still under research. Now, even today, the research on the say moon or the space, that has been an issue which has been there for last 100 years. So it is still continuing. It is not stopping. Still, we are thinking of this when you are talking the life in on the moon or life on the other planets. We are still continuing with our research. So any field which is under research and research studies are being carried out, and we have not finished, we haven't reached ultimate, that is where we think the real problem can be taken up. Then many a times we make observations. Now there are many unexplained observations which we make. And now when we say the observation, that means there is no theory, there is no reason why a particular phenomena is happening in the environment. Now even you look at, I would say this is still a very complex problem. When you say the pollution, and you have been witnessing this pollution for years together, and it is a very interdisciplinary kind of problem, not affected by one variable but multiplicity of variables. And you cannot actually control pollution without controlling the multiplicity of variables. So interdisciplinary research which is required, that is not available. And can we think of that observation? Still we are having the problem of the air pollution or environmental pollution, or even the waste management. You enter the Delhi and you have a Kuda mountain there, and now in many cities, this kind of phenomena is observable. So what can be done? There are strategies, but have we actually used those strategies in mitigating the adverse effects? No, research is still to be continued in that particular area. So when we look to another, you can see that there are many things which need to be still categorized or analyzed. So a system analysis is required in many cases. And if you find that something is not working right, maybe we have been thinking of having a regulatory authorities. Even the national education policy has made major recommendations with respect to the regulatory authorities. And this is being changed from time to time, right? And they have now started with the Higher Education Council, Higher Council for India. Now, look to the curriculum. Of various programs which we are offering, they have been under change, and something doesn't seem to be right because our students are not accepted. So what needs to be transformed? What changes need to be built in? Researchers' problems can creep in from this. Contrast that can still be discussed. Now, if we go on that, whether 10 plus 2 system was better, or whether 10 plus 1 system was better, or whether the prep was better. Now you have 4 years degree programs being offered, 3 years degree programs being offered. You have now the MOOC courses, you have the formal courses, face-to-face courses. So what is it? This is a contrast, whether formal education is better or the distance education is better, whether open education is better or the formal education. Still, this is under debate. So this can be a research problem. So something that can and should be argued for and against. Now, there may be, we have petrol engine, we have the diesel engine, we have the different types of fuels used for engine, right? So this is where for and against. Use of plastics, for and against. So can we think of all these arguments which are there? There are actually the problems which can be taken up as a research problem. इन कन्फ्लिक्ट है 4G 5G, अभी ये सारे आपके डिबेट और आर्ग्यूमेंट्स और फॉर एंड अगेंस्ट जा सकते हैं. So any system that needs to be evaluated, that means you want to evaluate for efficiency. I think you have already the examples with you, unexplained observations, something which needs to be analyzed. Um, okay. Yep. And I was talking about that there are certain things which are working in the environment, but you feel that these are not right. Now, something that doesn't seem right. Say, for example, we take an example of the curriculum which is in vogue in technical institutions. Our students are not accepted to the world of work, and there are a number of issues which have been raised that they lack technical knowledge skills, they lack soft skills, and so on. They lack problem solving skills. Now, what is it that you would like to take up? This can be a source of problem, that you something which is not working right. It can be that we would like to focus on the change in curriculum that is required to make it appropriate to the requirements of the industry. So there are things can still be discussed, the contrast that can still be discussed. Say, for example, you're taking into the formal education system, the distance education system, the open education system, or you are now talking in terms of the classroom, the blended learning approach, and you're talking in terms of active learning strategies, you're talking in terms of the massive online open courses at another end. Is something that is currently being debated. So any issue which is under debate now, all SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, they are being debated. What needs to be done? There is a lot of discussion going around. That becomes, because each Sustainable Development Goal provides you a problem in your relevant area. The electrical people can think of electrical, where mechanical people can think of the mechanical phenomena, and there are many interdisciplines. You have cybersecurity, you have the environmental, that is pollution controls, and so on. You talk of quality of education, which is all interdisciplinary kind of thing. So these are issues which are being debated, and there can be things where the arguments for and against 5G 4G, arguments for and against the plastics, use of plastics, for and against. So can we think of these things which can give the problem, or something that must be evaluated or re-evaluated? So this will always remain an issue with organizations or the individuals when it comes to the question of efficiency, effectiveness, adequacy, or modernization, etc. The things which are in existence, they need to be evaluated, and they need to be changed and transformed to meet the requirements of the industry or the changes, technological changes which have taken place, and so on, and constructive or needs new design. Now, say for example, you every 6 months or 3 months now, I would say, there is a change in the design of the mobile phones, new features being added, and its efficiency being or effectiveness being improved. So this is what constitutes the real problem. And any good research problem ought to be significant. Significant means it should lead to solving a significant problem faced by an individual or organization or group of individual or society at large. And this is something that it should not be repetitive. You shouldn't repeat the area which have been overdone. And all the studies, there is a conclusive finding that maybe just a hypothetical case that glass reinforced concrete, uh, the strength of the concrete is higher when the concrete is reinforced by glass in comparison to steel. Maybe this is hypothetical. So if there is conclusive finding, then if I take up a study on comparing the strength of glass reinforced and steel reinforced, this is simply wastage of time. So what problem I take up has to have some novelty, some originality. Maybe I don't use it for the same thing, I don't use it for the same context, or I don't use the same kind of the mixture. So there is variation in the kind of reinforcement being given. So can I think of something new? Feasibility. The research problem which we take up need to be implementable or executable. That means we should be able to undertake a study, collect the information, and within the time we should be able to complete that study. Worthwhileness, that any good research problem will benefit either the individual or the organization or the society. So there are a number of stakeholders. So it is going to benefit or it is going to make advancement in the existing knowledge. You have all taken up this task. Let me just share your opinion when you say what needs to be done. So when it comes to the task 2, okay, here we got the responses here. So it is said enlist 3 to 4 sources. I'll be taking up this next one. The characteristics of good research problem can be, okay, gap. So you have already said, but still there are variation. So all these, you can see all these are the what constitutes a problem. Then, when it comes to the characteristics of a good research problem, again, you will agree with me, it ought to be significant, original, feasible, as well as worthwhile. So, again, you find there this response, I don't know. Can somebody say what is this response, the fifth one which has been added here? There's no response. Okay, all these are right. Then we look at when it comes to the idea of research, from where we can generate an idea for research. Now, here, when it says the outrightly, what a researcher, when somebody has to start the process of research, first zero down the subject area. That means in what area of your subject, that means computer science, are you going to take up a research in the area of cybersecurity? Are you going to take up the research in artificial intelligence? Are you going to take up the research in case of machine learning? Are you going to develop a software? Are you going to just take up a study on the uh, effective way of designing and implementing websites and or creating blogs and so on. What is it that you are the area? And it is very important that when we try to select a subject area of from the branch of engineering which we are trying to take up a topic, we need to make sure that we pick up a course where we have the proficiency in the subject matter, because research would require you to dive deeper into the subject area. So one needs to have the mastery and interest, and there should be some curiosity to go further, because there are number of questions which still exist in any course which need to be answered. So if you have that kind of curiosity, you'll be ready to invest time and effort to go deeper into the subject. And there should be willingness on the part of the researcher to find solution to the problem which exists in those that particular topic. And you should be, whatever research you are going to use, it should be based on sound theory. So there should be some logical reasoning, logical explanation built around the. Now when we are talking of, say, talking of uh, massive open online courses, and we are on the other hand talking about the learning styles of the individual. So are there any basis that learning style impacts the achievement of the learners? If there is sound theory available, then we need to explore that. And the topic which we are going to take up need to be one which is of relevance in the current context. That means now we are in the area of computers. We are all talking of AI, uh, that is artificial intelligence, or we are talking of generative AI, or we are talking of machine learning. And now we are, the focus is more on humanizing the introduction or integration of technology. So the interaction between human and the technology. And another thing we need to sure, the area which we pick up, that there is ample opportunity of taking up research, and it is amenable to research. There are many issues which you cannot actually deal with. Say, for example, there are a number of philosophical issues. I would say the autonomy. Now, when we talk in terms of autonomy, what is the meaning of autonomy? This is not a question which can be researched. It is a philosophical question and can be answered in philosophy. When you talk of aims and objectives of education, again, that's parts of philosophy and sociology, where we go for the foundations and try to enlist the aims and objectives of our education. So these are, or there are certain issues which are related to morality, which are right or wrong, or should it be done or shouldn't it be? Say the religious education. Now, this is a question which is uh, um, related to morality. So we need not touch these issues because these are controversial, these are not researchable issues, and something which is worthwhile. And then we should try to find out a topic which we would like to take up. And this topic which we initially pick up, this is a very broad topic. Now, I had taken up an example of that person from mechanical engineering may like to work in the area of engines. Now, that is, he is dealing with engines and he is now concerned with factors affecting engine performance, right? And this is where a huge number of factors are affecting the performance of engine. There is not one factor. So what is the difference between a research topic and a research problem? Research problem is more specific, research topic is general, right? Now if I say the factors affecting the performance of engine. So what is the effect of factors on the performance of engine is a very broad kind of research topic which I am thinking of. And when you pick up this kind of topic, then it is where huge effort is required in undertaking a research. Then there is going to be large number of analysis, statistical kind of analysis, where you are going to either establish relationships, or you are going to establish the cause and effect relationships, and then you try to interpret all those findings. It becomes a very cumbersome process when multiplicity of variables are taken into account. So when we talk in terms of research problem, that means this idea needs to be converted into a research problem. And this research problem, when we talk in terms, this is an issue or a problem within the broad research topic. So we are not focusing on all the variables, but we are likely to focus on some of the selected variables within that broad. I'll just give you example for that. So well written statements of the problem, they try to indicate the kind of variables we are going to study and the kind of relationship among those, or between, if there are two variables between, or if there are more than two, then among those variables. And a research problem is narrow, more specific, precise, and written in clear terms. Now, let me just share with you a few the topic I have been talking about, the engine performance, right? Now, what is happening here? Now, when we say, I hope there are people from mechanical engineering in the group, and it's simple to understand. Now, when we say engine performance, so there are factors affecting the performance of the engine. And you can see, you can go and increase or decrease the list. So all these are factors which include these, which affect the performance of the engine. And the performance parameters are also many. You can think in terms of indicative power, brake power, frictional power, volumetric power, mechanical efficiency, thermal efficiency, ratio, or brake mean effective pressure, specific out. So many, so many. So when I simply say factors affecting engine performance, I'm going to investigate the factors affecting engine performance. Can I take up all these factors? Can I study their effect on all these performance parameters? It becomes very, very voluminous, time consuming, effort, resource consuming phenomena. So, what I need to do is, I need to narrow down the scope of my research problem. And that means I'm going to make it more specific. Now, here you can see factors affecting biodiesel engine performance and exhaust emissions. Now, here, when a person has taken up, he has simply taken up that altering the feedstock oil and alcohol type, and he has tried to see its effect on contamination, oxidized biodiesel fuel, sorry, U is there, and then exhaust emission. So the person has studied the effect of the changed fuel on the exhaust emission in terms of oxygen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and nitric oxide. These are the three things which the person has tried to. Then, if you look at another study in the same area, you will see which has been dealt with the optimization of the factors. Now, here again, the person has dealt with the engine load, the blend, which was varied at 4 levels. Blend was varied at 4 levels. EGR ratio was 4 levels. Engine speed was varied at 2 levels. And the performance parameters, they were restricted to effective power, specific fuel consumption, and effective efficiency, three performance parameters. Emission in terms of, again, three: carbon monoxide, dioxide, and nitric oxide. So you see, then if you look at another study, it was investigation of the effect of biofuel addition to jet fuel engine performance, and on addition to jet fuel on engine performance and emission. And here, fuel consumption, thrust power, exhaust gas temperature, noise, these many variables have been studied in terms of performance. So you can see, when we look at these problems, we started with a very broad topic, and then we tried to make it narrow down or specific. That means indicating the variable which we are going to study, and then the kind of relationship that exists among them. Right now, here, this is where the difference between the research topic or the area and the research problem is. My next question to you were, what are some of the sources for getting these research ideas or the problems? Though I have given some examples to you in the very second, third slide, but still we say that the personal experience of the person. Now, as a teacher, I'm observing in my class, there are students who learn the content in very easily. There are students who do not understand the content and take very long time to understand. What is it that is causing this behavior on the part of the lead? I'm interested in finding an answer to that. I'm teaching research methodology, so I am concerned with, when I teach a particular topic using a lecture method, the attentiveness, the concentration, the learning is not to the extent when I use the case study method, or when I use the problem based learning. So, this is my observation. Now, I need to prove it by undertaking research where I manipulate the variable and try to see its effect on the dependent variable. Personal experience could be that of a manager. When he tries to delegate the task to the faculty or to the people working with him, then there is more job settled. Those people seem to be more satisfied. And those who are not delegated the task, they remain unsatisfied. Or the experience may be, I have two cars at my disposal, one using one type of fuel, using another type of fuel. So what is it, why this is happening, why these kind of differences? So can I establish the cause and effect relationship between the fuel and the engine performance? So again, that's my personal experience which is leading to selection of a particular idea or a problem. Then practical issues. So the difficulties one experience, and the practical issues, like we have in the society so many issues related to sustainability, to related to environmental pollution, security, etc. All these are practical issues faced by the society. So can we think of, or maybe it is faced by an individual. Say, when you are working upon, say, as a teacher. So I am working upon designing a question paper. So practical issues becomes that I keep on giving very easy questions, because I have in mind the kind of students sitting in my class. But is it the right way of doing it? The question now bells in my head. It's not, because I'm not able to assess my learners for the different levels of cognitive, instructional, or learning outcomes. So I'm only having very easy means remembering, understanding, and some question maybe of applying. But what about the higher level abilities of problem solving? So, question, practical issue. How do I increase the reliability and validity? Because whenever there are re-evaluation of answer scripts, there are marked differences in the attainment of students. So how do I increase the reliability of my question paper, the assessment question, right? Theory. So provide conceptually rich topics. So theory is where you have, because any theory is the organization of concepts, principles, and it gives explanation for the certain processes or phenomena, why something is happening as it does, right? So theory becomes a sound basis for taking up research in the area. You have management theories, you have learning theories, you have manufacturing, maybe science theories, so theory of relativity and so on. So they become the basis. Think of your subject, think of a theory which is available and where the explanation needs to be proved in real life. So theory is available, the basic research has been done. Now is the question of taking up the applied research and proving that theory works in real life. So that can becomes, and past research offers you the most important source for identifying research ideas or research problems. And when we talk in terms of past research, what happens? Let me just here you can, when it comes to the question of past research, what are the various things which you can do? One is you may be interested in replication of some very significant research. Now, say for example, now the people in I have seen in computers, or they have taken up that they would like to identify the DNA for the species which are not there. So they would like to replicate that studies. How do we go about this? A study which has been taken up to identify the cancer cases with the genetic, there has been research, so databases have been taken up of the patients, and then the patterns have been evolved. The research which has been carried out abroad, that has been taken up in India with a different database here in Indian context, and the study has been replicated to find out whether it really, because this is of very recent things which are happening. So can we replicate a study? That may be my concern. I would like to replicate. I may like to take up a study which has already been done, but I would like to do in a different setting. Something, now there are a number of studies which have been taken as simulation studies. Now, and when you take up a simulation study, then you are able to control a large number of factors. But in real life, it is not possible to control all those factors. So, what has been done in simulation, I take up the same study and do it in the real setting. Real setting. So, does it work? That is what I would like to. So, I am going to use a different context, and I would like to increase the or enhance the external validity of the research. I may come across research which has been carried out, but there was one, the research which has been carried out has not controlled one of the variables which was a significant contributor to that phenomena. तो जब उसने कंट्रोल नहीं किया, so that becomes a drawback of that study. So can I now think of taking up a study where I control that variable and then determine the effect of independent variable on the dependent? So that is a study where I am controlling a variable. I am trying to eliminate the drawback of the research which was carried out and then see the effect of independent variable on the dependent variable. I may like to take up a study where, say for example, there are a number of studies which have been taken up on the biofuel, uh, biofuel, right? But the findings are not conclusive. Some studies say it increases the engine performance, others say it decreases the engine performance, and there are still other studies which say there is no significant effect of biofuel on the performance of the engine. Now, there are a number of contradictions that exist. That area still remains open for research. So I would like to take up a study at my level to find out what exactly is the position. So personal experience, practical issues, theory, past research, these are the four important sources for a research idea or the problem. In addition to that, all your whatever is available in library, your books, your journals, your encyclopedia, handbooks, reference books, annotated bibliographies, newspapers, magazines, etc., etc. The more you immerse yourself in the literature which is available in the subject area of your interest, the greater are the chances that you will be able to pinpoint one particular eminent problem, right? Then, number of today we have digital tools which are available. You have the list servers, you have the open access journals, you have the websites of industries, websites of the organizations, website of the sub special interest groups. So you can become a member and you can keep on receiving the updated information, and from there you can pinpoint the problem. In addition to that, I would say that government plans, policies, missions, programs, they can provide you ample scope for identifying, because any plan, policy, mission, or the program, government reports even which are available, they highlight the problems, issues which are still there in that field, right? Maybe it's you can go to the Ministry of Telecommunication, or you can go to the Ministry of Education, you can go to the Ministry of Social Welfare, Child Welfare, or you can go to IT, and so on. So you can find out number of policies, missions, and programs. To just to refer to, you have SDGs. These are all 17 SDGs. Even these SDGs provide scope for everyone to find a problem in that particular area. If you keep track of the SDGs reports which are there, and we find that India gets 109th ranking out of 167 countries, and the score is still 64. And the report gives you the areas which are posing major challenges, minor challenges in that particular SDG. So, as I have just listed for education, say, oh, not here. So, from here you can say where there is no change, no change, no change, no change, and there are still certain incremental changes have been witnessed in some, but there are still remain major challenges, minor challenges in those areas. So you can be SDGs, or you can think of I think I just leave this, I have already dealt with, right? So government policies, government plans, government missions, so even your Department of Science and Technology, uh, and All India Council for Technical Education, they float R&D projects from time to time. There also you can lay hand upon what is the area where you would like to, and what kind of problem. Many times there are problems indicated. Then technology trends. So, as we say, we are living in an era of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And there are changes, not in technology alone, but there are changes in the subject matter. There are changes in social structure. There are changes in economic milieu of the countries, and you can find changes everywhere taking place at a very rapid pace. So they become your basis for selecting a problem. That interaction with your colleagues, seniors, community members, industry members, they may like to, or the people who are working at a particular in position. So you may like to management people, so you have different management level. Are you going to the managerial or CEO level? Are you going to the person who's at the job workshop level you are going to do, or the people who are at the middle management level, or the people where the projects are there. So you have interdisciplinary teams working in the industry. So what is it that you would like to, accordingly you can talk to the people and get hold of the problems, issues, conflicting issues, debates going on, attend conferences, even that. Smart Hackathon, AICT, you are all familiar with. There are problems which are available faced by the industry. So you can go to that, find out what needs to be done. Sorry, why? Okay. So these are the various sources I have already discussed. The last two you can see here, suggestions for further research. They are all available in all the past research studies, even theses and dissertations. They give suggestions for further research. So these become the basis for taking up the studies. Now, let me just share what you have said here, and then I'll go further. You have to give me 5 to 10 minutes more. Here, task 2, let's not. So quickly, the here you have given me. Oh, did I ask that question? Sources, I think you have already included the current problem, the current issues, the practical issues, problem. Literature review is there. Publication is a part of that. Imagination. So you can imagine based upon the previous, but that, okay. Experimentations. Your initial experimentation may give you an idea of the problem. Research papers, that's part of past. Previous research, that's fine. Literature review is okay. Current new research, even scientific advancement. ठीक है, so technology advancements, we have taken changes which are happening in the any social issue, practical problem hai. Problem of current affair, right? Previous research area of interest. Survey literature, need of society, good. Application, what we have studied, good. Literature review, personal observations, right? Personal experience, expert consultation. Aage. So I think most of the points which you have enlisted have been covered. So let's quickly go to, once you have, अब ये सब देखो, जब आप आ जाते हो तो नेक्स्ट स्टेप इज, जब आपने अपनी प्रॉब्लम को मैनेजेबल किया तो क्या नैरो करना है ना. तो ये नॉन रिसर्चेबल टॉपिक आई हैव ऑलरेडी सेड, फिलोसॉफिकल, मॉरल, रिलीजियस, और ये नैरोइंग एंड फोकसिंग on your problem is that where you try to delimit the scope of your topic, and you try to pinpoint which are the variables which you are going to study. तो आप ज्यादा नहीं करेंगे तो क्या करेंगे. अब स्पेसिफिसिटी कैसे लाएंगे, आपको मैंने बता दिया था कि जो आपकी क्वांटिटेटिव स्टडीज होती है ना, that there the topic needs to be narrowed down initially. शुरू में ही हम उसको कर लेते हैं, उसके वेरिएबल्स फिक्स कर देते हैं. लाइक आई हैव गिवन यू एग्जांपल ऑफ इफेक्ट ऑफ ग्लास रीइंफोर्स्ड कंक्रीट ऑन द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द कंक्रीट. ठीक है, तो ये क्या है, हमने इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल बता दिया, डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल बता दिया. When we are talking against the relationship among, so I have given you example of determining the relationship between emotional intelligence, and the achievement of the final year students of electronics and communication engineering. तो ये मैंने क्या किया, I have given you the 3 variables where I would like to study the relationship among these. It's not a cause and effect relationship, simply the relationship. जो qualitative studies होती हैं, like case study. So I'm going deeper into an organization and trying to study the kind of work environment that exists in that organization. So maybe that is an institution which is top ranking institution in NIRF, right? So jo top ranking tha, I want to know what kind of work environment exists in that institution. So this kind of a study, you cannot delimit the scope. it is carried out throughout the process of undertaking the study. So you have said working environment, then you are delimiting it because you are going to formulate propositions at the end of the case study. So the topic still remains open, right? And it you go on modifying your problem, research problem. अब ये जो रिसर्च प्रॉब्लम है आपकी, this is delimiting the scope and you are determining the boundaries in which you are going to work. So मैंने आपको एग्जाम्पल दे दी है. अब इसमें हम क्या करते हैं, आपको एग्जाम्पल आई हैव गिवन. लेट मी गिव यू अ फ्यू मोर एग्जाम्पल्स हियर ऑफ नैरोइंग डाउन. अब ये शोध गंगा को अभी छोड़ दीजिए. दिस इज एडिशनल एसटीपी. ओके, ये जो मैंने आपको कहाँ थी, ओके राइट, ओके, ये आप देख सकते हैं. ये आप नाउ से फॉर एग्जाम्पल दिस इज वन स्टडी. The effects of long-term vitamin D deficiency on cardiovascular health are not well understood. So the problem is that I would like to investigate the effect of long-term vitamin D deficiency on cardiovascular health of the people in the age group, uh, age group of 60 to 70 years. ठीक है, और मे बी 50 to 60 years और 40 to 60 years, वो मैंने डिफाइन कर दिया. तो अब क्या किया, व्हेन आई सेड इफेक्ट ऑफ लॉन्ग टर्म विटामिन डी डेफिशिएंसी, सो इफेक्ट्स, तो लॉन्ग टर्म विटामिन डी डेफिशिएंसी का ग्रुप मुझे सिलेक्ट करना है, द पीपल हु आर देयर विद, बिकॉज आई कैन नॉट मैनिपुलेट दिस वेरिएबल, I cannot create deficiency in somebody. So that deficiency exists, and I'm trying to identify a group who has have long-term vitamin D deficiency, and I would like to study how is the cardiovascular health of that particular group. So it is a kind of ex post facto research which is being undertaken. So it is giving me methodology which is clear. If you look at the next one, relationship between gender, race, and income inequality, and closely studied in the context income inequality in relation to say a relationship among gender, race, income equality, and the attainment or achievement of learners. अगर मैं इतना ही लेती हूँ तो क्या होएगा? So I'm going to have a relationship study, correlation. The variable of interest are gender. So I'm interested in male and female, and race means they belong to different races, and income inequality. So some are with high income, others are average income, middle income, and low income group, right? Then here up example of okay, मैं कहाँ गया? ओके, दिस इज सम ऑफ दी. अभी देखिए जो आप स्टडीज लेते हैं ना, तो वो वेरिएबल विच यू आर गोइंग टू स्टडी दैट आर क्लियरली इंडिकेटेड, द काइंड ऑफ रिलेशनशिप, whether it is going to be true cause and effect, where you are able to manipulate a variable and see its effect upon the dependent variable, or you are going to just establish the association or relationship between two or more than two variables, or you are going to have the cause, what is it called, the tentative cause and effect, that is ex post facto research. And it also identify where the, who will be the participant to the, is it the male members, female members, electronics and communication engineering final year students, or whether it is going to be the people in the age group of 40 to 60 or 60 to 70. The variable, you understand, variable can assume any value. So the value of variable varies from one person to another, or one situation to another. So there can be discrete variables which are dichotomous or multiple categories. Say you have gender, rural, urban, petrol, diesel, electrical, or you have AC, DC motors, So you can, these are discrete things. You have continuous variables in terms of achievement, age, intelligence, emotional quotient, job satisfaction, or you may have strength of materials, etc., etc. So variable clear hai. There in experimental studies, you have independent and dependent variable. Independent variable is one which you are able to manipulate and see its effect on the dependent variable. Dependent variable is the one which is dependent upon the variable which is being manipulated. So engine performance is dependent on the engine parameters, like with what I have shown you there, the changes which you can make, the fuel, the maintenance, etc., compression ratio, etc., etc. Right? Then now here you can see that the problem, when you say the problem statement, effect of structured industrial training on the problem solving skills, creativity, ability to work in teams of final year students of engineering branches in UP. So that needs to be completed. So here structured industrial training is independent variable, problem solving, creativity, ability to work in team is dependent variable. So this I would go. Only thing is, when you are narrowing down the topic, you should try to interact with people who are expert in that particular field, the people who are other researchers, experts, and handbooks, the secondary sources of information. Handbooks हैं, encyclopedia है, reviews हैं, books हैं, edited books हैं, ये सब conceptual literature जितना भी आपके पास available है, I think there is a spelling mistake. So जितने भी आपके secondary sources of information हैं, they can help you in narrowing down the topic. और अगर आप कोई ऐसा टॉपिक ले रहे हैं which is where you are taking up, say, I said we are talking in terms of air pollution, and I'm concerned with air pollution in Delhi. So, what other strategy I can adopt if the area has not been explored much? Then we can go on for brainstorming, and we can generate a large number of factors that can lead to air pollution. Brainstorming is where you are generating ideas with deferred judgment. You are not evaluating whether the factor is relevant or irrelevant, whether it is worthwhile or not worthwhile. Once you have generated the list, then you use the process of elimination. So whatever irrelevant factors have been indicated, you try to remove those factors, and you are left with list of probable factors. Then you try to evolve a model. So you can go in for graphical model, or you can go for a numerical kind of model, which you can initially prepare, which can lead to research problem. So those areas where you have not even you can generate this kind of process having the past research. Then you have the possible contributing factors you can enlist, and then out of that you can see which are some of the significant factors, some of the less significant, most significant, and the least significant factors, and then you retain most significant factors, and then you evolve a model. That means you have your own explanation built on why you would like to take up this, and then you can generate the research module. Then comes the purpose and objectives. So here are few examples of specific studies. That effect of surface reinforcer on compressive strength and microscopic mechanism of freeze-thaw deteriorated concrete. So here you can see surface reinforcer is independent variable, compressive strength and microscopic mechanism is the dependent. This another one, effect of biofuel addition to jet fuel on engine performance and emission. So engine performance, emission are the dependent variable, biofuel is the independent variable. So आप जो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं, पर्पस जो आपका इंटेंट है, सो डिटर्मिन, आपने कहा डिटर्मिन द इफेक्ट ऑफ दिस ऑन दिस, द इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल ऑन डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल. अब इसको प्रूव करने के लिए, इसको एक्सेप्ट करने के लिए, you are going to frame your objectives of the study. So, or you are going to state the research question. So, anything which enables you to achieve the purpose or intent of study becomes your research question. So, as the name says, research question, they are written in question form. Objectives are written in the statement form. So, let me just आगे examples थी कहीं पे मैंने उड़ा दी हैं. ये सपोज कर लीजिए, the problem was what is the degree of utilization of various resources in the polytechnics of Delhi. Now, जब resources का, तो there are various types of resources. There are physical resources, information resources, financial resources. So आपने research question वहां से emerge हो जाते हैं, simply that you are now writing simple, what is the extent of utilization of physical, financial resources. अब देखिए ये जैसे आपका another है problem, what is the status of women faculty in the polytechnics of JK. So ये आपका आ गया, to determine the number of female teachers working at different levels, to determine the number of women teachers at different levels with degree and post-degree qualifications, to determine the number of female teachers who have upgraded their qualifications after joining the profession, to identify the contributions of women faculty in terms of research and innovation, to identify the career prospects, and to suggest strategies. Now, this is a descriptive studies which have been. And after you have gone through, once you have finalized your problem, you go for intensive review of related literature to that problem. And on the basis of the synthesis of the findings of the study, you formulate your hypothesis. Hypothesis is educated guess. That means the question which you have raised, you are giving an answer to that, and that answer is testable, which needs to be proven or it need to be accepted or rejected after the collection of data and information. So hypotheses are tentative predictions of the results of research. Now, say for example, if I say effect of structured industrial training on problem solving ability of student. So the hypothesis may be there is no significant effect of structured industrial training on problem solving ability. Or the hypothesis could be there is significant effect of structured industrial training on the problem solving ability of student. Or there is significant increase in the problem solving ability of students after structured industrial. अब देखिए ये तीनों difference है. When I say there is no significant difference, we are referring to null hypothesis. Any statement which indicates no relationship or no difference, we call it a null hypothesis. There is no significant effect of biofuel on the emission from the engine in terms of carbon dioxide. Okay. So, ये क्या है? Null hypothesis. When you say there is significant effect of biofuel on the emission from engine, now this emission may increase, this emission may decrease. तो ये डायरेक्शन नहीं बता रहा, ये बता रहा है there will be change, but that change may be for the good or for the bad. बढ़ भी सकता है या कम भी हो सकता है. That is a non-directional hypothesis. Non-direction. It says there will be effect, but it doesn't say in which direction there will be change. Directional क्या है? If we say uh, the use of biofuel is there is significant decline in the emission from the engine in case of biofuel. बायोफ्यूल. तो ये क्या है कि आप कह रहे हो ये घट जाएगी, सिग्निफिकेंट रिड्यूस, कम हो जाएगी. तो इट इज अ शोइंग द डायरेक्शन कि जितनी अभी दे रहा है जब बायोफ्यूल यूज करोगे तो घट जाएगी. सो हाइपोथेसिस जब आप बना देते हो, सो व्हेन वी से डिफाइन, डिफाइन का मतलब है identifying the variable which you are going to study, the relationship you are going to establish, whether it is kind of descriptive or whether it's going to be cause and effect. If it is going to be cause and effect, whether it is going to be tentative cause and effect or true cause and effect. And then we are saying whether the variables we are discrete variable or continuous variable, or whether in terms of when we are establishing true cause and effect, then whether the variable is independent or the dependent variable. And then the definition of the problem comes with purpose and the statement of research questions or statement of objectives for the study, and finally leading to the formulation of hypothesis. So I stop here. This is all what is entailed in selecting and defining the problem.